Hello, she texted. I'm taking a last-minute trip with my ex, don't get jealous. I replied, why would I? Then I packed all her belongings and left them all on her ex's doorstep. When she came back, she finally understood that the place she called home wasn't hers anymore. I was at work, half paying attention to a spreadsheet, when my phone buzzed. It was a random Tuesday, nothing special, no argument earlier, no tension that morning. We'd kissed goodbye like normal. I remember that because she corrected me for grabbing the wrong mug from her side of the cabinet. The text said, hey, just a heads up. I'm taking a last-minute trip with my ex, don't get jealous. No emoji, no explanation, just that. For context, I'm Jake, 29M. She's Lena, 27F. We've been together just over 2 years and living together for 8 months in my apartment. I pay the rent. She Venmos me when she remembers. According to her, that's our system. I stared at the screen for a solid minute, waiting for the follow-up where she'd say she was joking or that I misread it. Nothing came, so I replied with the calmest thing I could think of. Why would I? She responded almost instantly. Exactly. Love that you're being mature for once. That sentence annoyed me more than the trip itself. Her ex, Mark, isn't some ancient history. He's the guy she still runs into every few months. The one she claims was toxic, but somehow always has tickets, plans, or emotional emergencies. The one she told me not to worry about so many times it became suspicious. When I got home that night, she was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through outfits on her phone, asking my opinion without looking up. Which jacket says unbothered but hot? She asked. I asked when she was leaving. Tomorrow morning, she said. Relax. It's only a few days. You'll survive. She said it like she was doing me a favor by leaving. That night, lying next to her while she slept peacefully, something shifted. Not anger, not jealousy, just clarity. I realized she wasn't asking for trust. She was informing me of my place. And for the first time since we started dating, I didn't feel like arguing. I felt like planning. The next morning, she left like she always did, late, loud, and irritated that the world didn't move on her schedule. She stomped around the bedroom, zipping and unzipping her carry-on, muttering about how airlines are scams and how she should have just driven with Mark. She didn't seem to notice how that sentence landed, or maybe she did and just didn't care. Make sure you water my plant, she said, standing in the doorway. Not our plant. Hers. I nodded. She rolled her eyes like I'd already disappointed her somehow. Before she walked out, she added, and don't start acting weird while I'm gone. I don't have the energy for insecurity right now. Then she was gone. No kiss. No hug. Just the sound of the door locking behind her. The apartment felt different immediately. Quieter, but also lighter. I stood there for a few minutes doing nothing, just listening to the hum of the fridge and the distant traffic. Normally, I'd be anxious in moments like this, overthinking, replaying texts, wondering if I should have said more. Instead, I grabbed a trash bag. I told myself I was just cleaning. That's how it started, at least. Her stuff was everywhere. Shoes by the door she never put away. Makeup on the bathroom counter like it paid rent. Clothes draped over chairs she didn't own. As I picked things up, memories surfaced. Not the good ones, but the small dismissive moments I'd ignored. The time she laughed when I said the couch was expensive and replied, relax, it's your couch. The way she called the apartment temporary whenever I talked about upgrading anything. By noon, the trash bag was full, but not with trash. With clarity, I sat on the floor, surrounded by her things, and opened my phone. No new messages from her. But her Instagram story was already up. Airport selfie, sunglasses on. Caption chaos, but make it spontaneous airplane. Mark had liked it. That's when I realized something important. She wasn't hiding anything because she didn't think she had to. So I stopped cleaning. And I started sorting. Not emotionally. Logistically. What was hers? What wasn't? And where it all belonged. By the time the sun started setting, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Because when someone tells you not to get jealous, what they're really saying is, you don't get a say. And I was done being a background character in my own place. I didn't sleep much that night, but not in the way you'd expect. No pacing. No doom scrolling. No checking her location. I slept in short, calm stretches, like my brain had finally stopped fighting something it already knew. By morning, I had a list. Not written down, just clear. Lena had always joked that she was basically living out of a suitcase anyway. Turns out she was right. Half her life was already portable. The other half was spread through my apartment like she was testing how much space she could take without being asked to give anything back. I started in the bedroom. Her dresser drawers were chaos. Mine were folded, stacked, boring. Hers were a mix of expensive tops with tags still on them and clothes she claimed she might wear again someday. I pulled everything out, one drawer at a time, and placed it on the bed. No rush. No anger. Just sorting. She texted around noon. Ugh, airport food is disgusting. What are you doing? I stared at the message, then typed. Just handling some things. She left me on read. The bathroom was next. That one almost made me laugh. 3 shelves of skincare bottles, half empty, none of which she'd ever paid for. I remembered the time she scoffed when I asked if we should split toiletries. Ew, no. That's so transactional. Apparently rent wasn't. By mid-afternoon, the apartment looked unfamiliar. Empty shelves, clear counters, corners I hadn't seen in months. Her stuff filled boxes faster than I expected. I took breaks, not because I was tired, but because certain memories tried to sneak in. Her standing in the kitchen, criticizing how I loaded the dishwasher. Her telling friends, right in front of me, that I was emotionally simple. The way she used jokes as cover for disrespect. At some point, I realized something uncomfortable. If she walked back in right now, she wouldn't panic. She'd be annoyed. She'd ask why I overreacted. She'd say I misunderstood. She'd call it dramatic. And that's when I understood the real problem. She never thought I'd do anything permanent. So I made a decision that felt less like revenge and more like correcting a misunderstanding. I checked her location once. She was already hours away. Plenty of time. I sealed the last box just as the sky started to darken, taped it clean, and stacked it neatly by the door. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be explaining myself. I'd be delivering a message. Quietly, clearly, to the place she chose over me. The next morning, I borrowed my friend Nate's truck. I told him I needed help moving some stuff. And he didn't ask questions. He's known me long enough to know that when I'm calm like this, something already ended. We loaded the boxes one by one. Clothes, shoes, makeup bags, random candles she said were for the vibe. It was strange how impersonal it all felt. 8 months of cohabiting reduced to cardboard and tape. Is this everything? Nate asked. Everything that's hers, I said. Her furniture stayed. She never brought much. Just little things that made the place feel crowded without ever feeling shared. Before we left, I walked through the apartment one last time. It looked like mine again. Not lonely. Just quiet in a way that felt earned. Then I typed her ex's address into my phone. I'd only been there once. She made a point of calling it a coincidence when she drove past it. Claimed she barely remembered where he lived. Turns out I remembered just fine. When we pulled up, Nate raised an eyebrow. This is bold, he said. It's accurate, I replied. We stacked the boxes neatly on the porch. No mess. No damage. Just a clean line of her life, returned to sender. I taped a note on the top box. Nothing dramatic. Just 4 words. These belong with you. Then we left. I didn't text her. I didn't post anything. I didn't block her either. I went home, ordered takeout, and sat on the couch she used to complain was too firm. I ate slowly, like someone who finally had time. Her call came around midnight. I let it ring. Then another. Then a text. Why is my stuff at Mark's house? I stared at the message, felt nothing spike. No adrenaline, no guilt. Just inevitability. I replied. You said you were taking it there. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then. This isn't funny, Jake. I didn't respond. Because it wasn't a joke. It was an adjustment. And she was finally starting to feel it. Her messages didn't stop after that. They escalated. First confusion. Then anger. Then bargaining. You had no right. That's humiliating. Mark thinks you're unstable. That one actually made me laugh. I still didn't reply. Around 2 a.m., she switched tactics. Can we talk when I get back? You're being extreme. Extreme. Not disrespectful. Not hurtful. Just extreme. Like I'd ruined her weekend plans instead of responding to them. I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail. I didn't listen to it right away. I made coffee first. Sat at the kitchen table she always complained was too small for entertaining. I liked it just fine. When I finally pressed play, her voice sounded different. Still sharp, but strained. She said Mark was confused. She said he didn't sign up for this. She said it was awkward, explaining why her entire life was now on his porch. That's when it clicked. She hadn't brought her stuff there mentally. She'd brought me there emotionally. I was supposed to wait. Hold the place. Be the fallback. The storage unit with feelings. Instead, I'd return the role to its original owner. She texted again around noon. So what? You're just kicking me out. I stared at that one longer than the rest. Then I replied. You already left. No typing bubbles this time. Just silence. I spent the rest of the day reclaiming the apartment in small ways. Took down the art she'd mocked. Rearranged the bookshelf she said didn't match her aesthetic. I moved my desk back to where she'd insisted it didn't belong. That night, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Not out of spite, out of closure. Her flight landed the next evening. I knew because she texted. I'm home. We need to talk. Open the door. I didn't move. Because the place she called home wasn't hers anymore. And for the first time since I met her, that wasn't a threat. It was just a fact. She didn't stop knocking for a while. I could hear it through the door, sharp, impatient, the same rhythm she used when she wanted something immediately. I stayed on the couch, phone face down, TV off. Not hiding, just done. Eventually the knocking turned into pounding. Jake, she snapped through the door. This isn't cute. Open it. I didn't answer. Her tone shifted, like flipping a switch. Okay, fine. You're mad. I get it. But you don't get to lock me out of my own home. That word again. My. I finally stood up, walked to the door, and spoke without opening it. It's not your home. Silence. Then a laugh, short, disbelieving. Wow. So Mark was right. You are being dramatic. That was interesting. Not hurt. Not confused. Dramatic. You went on a trip with your ex, I said. You told me not to get jealous. So I didn't. You don't get to punish me for having a life, she shot back. I didn't punish you, I said. I accepted your choice. She went quiet again. I imagined her face, trying to decide which version of herself would work best. The sweet one, the angry one, the reasonable one. Where am I supposed to go? She asked finally. That question landed differently. Not can we fix this? Not did I hurt you? Just logistics. You already figured that out, I said. Didn't you? Her voice hardened. You think you're some kind of hero for this? You think this makes you strong? No, I said. It makes me finished. She swore under her breath. I heard her phone buzz. Probably Mark, probably someone else. She always had a backup audience. You're really going to end things like this? She asked. I thought about all the ways we'd been ending for months. The dismissals. The jokes. The way she'd already practiced life without me. We ended when you told me not to get jealous, I said. Everything after that was just furniture. She stood there another minute, then another. Finally, footsteps going away. I didn't feel victorious. I felt light. And for the first time, I didn't wonder if she'd come back. I knew she would, just not to stay. She came back 2 days later. I wasn't home when it happened. I was at the gym, headphones on, doing something I hadn't done in months, taking my time. When I checked my phone afterward, there were 12 missed calls and a single text. I'm inside. We need to talk. Now. I drove home slowly. When I walked in, she was standing in the living room like a guest who'd overstayed their welcome but refused to admit it. Her suitcase was by the door. Her eyes scanned the space, taking in what was missing. The shelves. The bathroom counter. Her shoes. What did you do? She asked, like she genuinely couldn't tell. I made room, I said. For what? She snapped. For myself. She scoffed and crossed her arms. So that's it. You freak out, embarrass me, dump my stuff at my ex's house, and now you're playing Zen monk? I didn't freak out, I said. I listened. To what? She demanded. To the part where you told me not to get jealous, I replied. That told me everything. Her mouth opened, then closed. She paced, dragging her suitcase a few inches like she might unpack out of spite. You're really throwing away 2 years over a trip, she said. No, I said. I'm ending it over how little the trip meant to you. That stopped her. She looked at me differently then, not angry, not dismissive, calculating. So what? She said slowly. You're just done? Yes. She laughed again, but it cracked this time. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said, but I won't be confused anymore. She shook her head, grabbed her suitcase, and walked toward the door. Halfway there, she turned back. You know, she said, Mark said you'd do something like this. He said you were insecure. I nodded. Funny, you still let him be right. That one landed. She didn't say goodbye, just pulled the door shut behind her. I stood there for a long moment after, listening to the silence settle back in. Then I locked the door, not because I was afraid she'd come back, but because I finally understood that some doors aren't meant to stay unlocked once you see what walks through them. The apartment didn't feel empty after she left. That surprised me. I kept waiting for the drop, the quiet panic, the second guessing, the urge to reach out just to smooth things over like I always used to. Instead, what settled in was something steadier. Space. Actual space. That night, I found one of her earrings under the couch. Normally, that would have been my cue to text her. Hey, you forgot this. A small excuse to reopen the door. I held it for a second, then dropped it in the junk drawer with old batteries and mismatched keys. It fit there better. The next few days were quiet. No messages. No apologies. No dramatic Instagram posts either, which I knew meant she was telling the story privately first, controlling the narrative before it could escape her. I heard from mutual friends anyway. Apparently, she was blindsided. Apparently, I overreacted. Apparently, she never cheated, which wasn't a defense I'd even asked for. One friend asked if we were taking a break. I said no. Another asked if I thought she'd come back. I said probably, because Lena didn't lose often, and she hated endings she didn't script. Sure enough, a week later, she texted, "Can we talk? Not to fight, just to get closure." Closure. Another word she liked because it sounded mature while meaning comfort. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, "I already have it." She didn't answer after that. I found out later she'd moved most of her things into Mark's place, temporarily. That temporary lasted about 3 weeks before it became a problem. Apparently, he wasn't as flexible when her mess was permanent and her moods weren't optional. Funny how that works. One night, sitting alone in the apartment, I realized something else too. I hadn't missed her voice. I'd missed the version of myself who kept trying to earn peace. And that guy didn't live here anymore. There was one last thing left to do. Not for her. For me. And it had nothing to do with getting the last word. It had everything to do with making sure the door stayed closed. The last thing I did wasn't dramatic. No speeches. No posts. No long messages typed and deleted. I called my landlord. The lease was in my name, always had been. Lena liked to say it was our place, but she never liked paperwork, never liked commitment unless it benefited her immediately. The landlord asked if everything was okay. I said yes. I was just updating records. I removed her name as an authorized occupant. It took 5 minutes. After that, I went through the apartment slowly, checking corners like you do before leaving a hotel. Not because I expected to find her, but because I wanted to be sure nothing of me was still wrapped around her absence. I donated a jacket she once claimed looked better on her. I deleted old photos, not angrily, just selectively. The versions of us that existed in those pictures weren't lies, but they weren't directions either. That night, she called again. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "What do you want, Jake?" she asked, skipping hello. "I wanted to let you know," I said calmly, "that you can't come back here, even to get things. If there's anything left, I'll mail it." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, sharper than usual. "So that's it," she said. "You're erasing me." "No," I replied. "I'm finishing something you started." Her voice cracked. Not enough to sound sorry, just enough to sound inconvenienced by consequences. "You really think you're better than me now?" she asked. I thought about that for a second. "I think I'm quieter," I said. "And I like that." She hung up without another word. I sat there afterward, phone in my hand, waiting for something to hit me. Sadness, anger, doubt. Nothing did. Because the truth was, I hadn't lost a girlfriend. I'd gotten my life back. There was only one part left to say out loud, the part that made this whole thing real. And it wasn't for her to hear. It was for me. I'm writing this now because a friend told me I should, because apparently this is the part where people ask if I'm okay. I am. Not in the dramatic, thriving way people like to perform online. Just okay in the quiet, settled sense. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. Lena never apologized. She never admitted she crossed a line. The last I heard, she told people I was intense and emotionally unpredictable. I don't bother correcting that. Anyone who really knows me knows how rare it is for me to stop trying. That was the real ending. Not the trip, not the boxes, not the locked door. It was the moment I realized I'd been negotiating for basic respect with someone who treated commitment like a convenience. A week ago, I came home, unlocked the door, and it hit me all at once. This place finally felt like home again. Not because she was gone, but because I wasn't shrinking anymore to make room for someone who never planned to stay. I changed the sheets. Bought a plan I actually like. Started cooking meals without commentary. No tension. No waiting for the next eye roll. I don't hate her. That surprised me too. I just don't miss her. So yeah, she took a last-minute trip with her ex and told me not to get jealous. I believed her. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't compete. I listened. And when she came back, she finally understood something she'd never considered before. The place she called home wasn't hers anymore. Because it never really was. Bye-bye.